All right, let's dive into a financial product that you're probably hearing more and more about, the structured annuity. It really promises this kind of middle ground for your retirement savings, mixing market growth with some protection. So what does that actually mean for your money? Let's break it down.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the core problem this thing is trying to solve. Then we'll define the solution and get into the nitty-gritty of how it actually works. After that, we'll weigh the pros and cons, see how it stacks up against other options, and then finally, help you figure out if this might actually be a good fit for you.
So, let's start with the big challenge, the one that so many of us are thinking about as retirement gets closer and closer on the horizon.
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You know you need your nest egg to grow, to beat inflation, but man, the thought of a big market crash just wiping out years of hard work, it's terrifying. It's this exact dilemma that is people looking for something different, something beyond just stocks or a basic savings account.
And that leads us right to our main topic, a product that was literally designed to live in that space between aggressive, risky growth and just playing it completely safe.
So the official name is a mouthful, a registered index-linked annuity, or RILA. You'll hear that, but most folks just call it a structured annuity. And the key word here is hybrid. The whole idea is to give you a taste of those stock market gains while building in some partial protection to soften the blow from a downturn.
So where does this thing fit in the big picture? Well, think of it like this. On one end of the spectrum, you have something like a fixed indexed annuity, or FIA, that usually guarantees you can't lose money, but your growth is pretty limited. On the other end, you have a variable annuity, which gives you full exposure to the market, all the potential gains and all the potential losses. The structured annuity tries to sit right in the middle of that road, asking you to take on a little bit of risk for a shot at much better returns. It's all about that trade-off.
Okay, now this is the most important part to wrap your head around. How does this partial protection actually work? It's not magic, you know. It's all about the mechanics. So let's get right into it. The protection in one of these usually comes in one of two flavors, a buffer or a floor. A buffer, well, it's like a shield. It absorbs that first hit from the market. The insurance company takes that initial loss for you. A floor is different. Think of it more like a safety net. It sets the absolute worst-case scenario, the maximum you can possibly lose, no matter how crazy the market gets.
To make this crystal clear, let's just run the numbers. Let's imagine you put 100 grand in and you've chosen a 10% buffer for your protection. Let's see how that plays out in a few different situations.
Okay, so 3 possibilities. Scenario 1, the market has a great year. It's up 18%. Now, you don't get all of that. Your return is limited by what's called a cap. Let's say it's 12%. So you make 12%. Not bad at all. Now, what if the market drops, say 6%? This is where the buffer does its thing. Your 10% buffer completely eats that loss. Your $100,000 is safe. You lose nothing. But in a really bad year, what if the market just plummets 25%? Well, the buffer absorbs that first 10%, and then you're on the hook for the rest. So a 25% loss becomes a 15% loss for you.
And this chart just shows that perfectly. A 25% drop in the market would be a gut punch if you are invested directly. But with that buffer, look, your loss is cut way down to 15%. It's not zero, but it's a much, much softer landing. Now let's look at the other option, the floor. Let's use that same 100 grand, but this time you choose a negative 10% floor. What this means is simple. Your absolute maximum loss is 10%. That's it. That's your safety net.
On the upside, instead of a cap, you might have a participation rate. That just means you get a slice of the market's gain. So if the market goes on a 40% tear and your rate is 80%, you get a fantastic 32% return. But here's the real power of the floor. Let's say the market has a terrible year and crashes by 50%. Your loss is stopped dead in its tracks at 10%. Period. That right there provides some serious peace of mind. Okay, so we've seen how it works, but like any financial product, this thing is not a silver bullet. It comes with a pretty clear set of benefits, but also some really important things you've got to consider.
So the upsides are pretty clear. First, you've got that risk management, those guardrails we just talked about. Second, the growth potential is just plain higher than what you'd get in super safe products. Plus, your money grows tax-deferred, which is a really powerful way to let your wealth compound over time. And often, you can tweak the terms to match what you're comfortable with.
But, and this is a big but, you have to remember that a partial loss of your principal is absolutely possible. This is not a fully guaranteed product. Another huge consideration is that the terms, those caps and rates, they can change when your contract renews every few years. Let's be honest, these things can be complex. And there's a real risk that in some sideways markets, you could end up with zero gains for a whole term.
To really get a feel for where structured annuities fit, the best way is to just put them side by side with the alternatives.
This table really makes the trade-offs obvious. Just look at that top row, principal protection. You can see the fully protected options like the FIA and the MYGA. Then way over on the other side, the variable annuity with no protection at all. The structured annuity, it's right there in the middle with partial protection. Now look down at upside potential. Same story, it's right in that middle ground, offering more juice than the safe bets, but less than the all-out risk of a variable annuity.
So after all that, we get to the most important question of all. Does this specific tool actually line up with your personal goals, your timeline, and honestly, your comfort level with risk?
Generally, this product tends to be a pretty good fit for people getting close to retirement, maybe in their 50s and 60s, who have a moderate appetite for risk. They want some market exposure with those protective guardrails. It's usually not a great fit for anyone who absolutely, positively cannot lose a single penny of their principal, or for someone who needs income right away. And because your money is tied up for a set term, it's not for anyone who might panic in a downturn and want to pull their money out.
And that's our look at structured annuities. They really do offer a unique mix of risk and reward, a potential answer to that big retirement dilemma. But as we've seen, that middle ground comes with its own set of rules and trade-offs. So the question you're left with is that particular ground the right ground for your financial future? Thanks for joining me.